welcome to our Thursday evening budget workshop. If you two could introduce yourselves and then proceed.
Sure. Heather Hunter, City Administrator.
Tracy Roy, Finance Director.
So tonight we'll start with the personal service fringe benefits and the capital, and then we'll jump to Public Works, which includes the parking garage, and then all the way through the rest of the Public Works divisions. So I will let Tracy take it away.
So this is a reminder, on the city's website, the budget can be found under the Finance Department, Municipal Budget, or hard copy can be looked at City Clerk's office or Lewiston Public Library. The budget is also on the front page. If you scroll down a little bit, it'll bring you to the link on the finance. Any questions can be emailed to the City Administrator, Heather Hunter, at lewistonmaine.gov, or public comments at lewistonmaine.gov. Just a reminder for you, Monday's meeting with the school committee is 5:30 at the Green Ladle. It will not be located here. So we're going to start with personal services and fringe benefits. They can be found on page 20 to 34. So I'll let you get there. On page 20, you'll see the count of all the employees for the last 10 years for each department. So that's a table to reference. Incorporated in that table, you will find 2 frozen police officers, 1 highway worker that was frozen, 1 equipment mechanic position that was added back to the budget this year for fiscal year 2025. That totals $227,812. That's excluding fringe. Fringe is not in that number for those positions. There are 5 phased-in positions from last year that are now analyzed, adding an estimated $73,997. That's the senior appraiser, the firefighter, the fire inspector, and 2 highway workers. Those were phased in last year. You will note that the city is still 59 positions down from the peak in 1994. So for the new request, and again, the new requests are not in the budget. Those are found on page 18, and you have the detail that I had emailed to you. There are 15 requests for new full-time positions and other labor needed reflected through the new program services requested, which include the following full-time positions: 1 communication manager at $93,675, a fire deputy chief at $196,060. Yep.
That include benefits is why it's that high, 'cause it's only
Correct.
117 on the actual page, so we pay $80,000 in benefits?
That also includes uniforms, cell phone stipends, workstations, computer, anything to set up a new position that's not currently funded right now.
So the first year, that's why it's that high.
Exactly.
Correct. So if you look at the packet that got emailed to you, or you got a copy of it, in the back it has everything broken down. So if that is a new position and they don't have a workstation, they have to put in for the workstation a computer or a phone. So that's all broken down for you in those sheets.
Okay, great, so I guess, for me, when I look at your form, that's why I asked for copies.
Yep.
I couldn't tell it's a one-time. Perhaps maybe next year, if we get new positions, we would know what one-time fees are. Now, a uniform would carry over, but there are some things that are one-time, so I'm not looking at like an $80,000 increase per year in benefits, and that's just my only curiosity.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
If I could just interrupt for just a second. I just wanted to make a note, that also includes a vehicle, so the first year is
Right.
much large. That's why the number is so large.
Thank you, Chief.
So I think I left off at firefighter, $81,354. A planning technician, $89,606. A youth and family recreation aide at $75,178. 3 police officers totaling $331,986. 2 mechanics, $180,784. 2 solid waste workers, $156,462. 4 building division workers, 1 at the Armory, 1 at the new police station, and 1 at public bathrooms and the parking garages, and 1 system operation coordinator, totaling $343,976. A benefit and training specialist at $93,675. An economic development administrator assistant at $76,525. Main Street program manager at $161,971. And other additional labors requested included 2 temporary mechanics at $78,854. Amounts include the minimum of Fringe benefits with family health insurance coverage due to the fact that we don't know if they will be taking single or health. So we always put in the family amount. That way we're always cautious to make sure we're covering everything. And some of the positions will be including computers, phones, workstations in those totals. And like I said, in the back sheets, that will all be split out for you. None of these positions, a reminder, are included in the current budget.
Councilor Gallant?
Questions about mechanics, Class A? Obviously, that's a certified mechanic. Per our union, they don't seem to allow us to bring in people at a higher rate. How is that going to be affected? You know, you're pricing in somebody who's probably going to be higher than some of these people. Are we expecting people to bump up to that position? We're going to try to work through that, because I know that's one of the concerns they have over there, is qualified mechanics, not just there, almost everywhere. Is there?
What we would do is look at it, and I don't know if Phil's stepping up to the plate.
Hi, my name's Philip Brands. I'm the Fleet Operations Superintendent here at the city.
Nice to meet you. Haven't met yet. Thanks for being
That's
here.
an area that we're working on right now. We're trying to be able to, you know, slot people a little higher than the base pay to try to get them in, because our base pay right now, you know, doesn't cut it in the real world. So that's something that we have been working on with the union, trying to get a solution to that problem.
I'll hold this question. Thank you.
Any other questions on that before we move on? So under regular time, that's on page 21 and 22, the overall increase is $1,796,775, or 8.4%. This includes all settled contract adjustments and step increases. Please keep in mind when you're looking at the 2024 actual column that is up to February 29th, you're going to see some budget to actuals that look like we're going over. That's because the allocations for the salary reserve aren't done until closer to the year end, so you'll notice that. So some increases may appear larger than normal. Yeah.
Go ahead, go first.
These actuals are through the end of February, which is very conveniently exactly 2/3 of the way through the year. So if we take the actuals and multiply that by 1.5, is that going to be as close as we can get to year end?
Sometimes we are hiring individuals, so it's not always a estimate that it'll end up that way. Some departments, yes, because they're all filled, positions are filled, but other departments have vacancies. Like Phil said, he's currently looking at a mechanic. So he's been without a mechanic for the full year. If he hires somebody now, then that will be an additional amount. So other departments like that may come in, if you would take that and do that, they'll come in higher than what you're looking at.
On a discrete
But-
basis, yes,
right.
but overall, if you look at the 1.13 million times 1.5 is going to be our year end actual. Close enough.
Close to it, if there's no vacancies, correct.
Okay, thank you.
My turn. Is there a way to get a copy of what 4113 is, division? Like, we have all these numbers to the left and salaries, but I don't know who these people are. A booklet or something that says, so I know, and I'll use the 4321, who's gonna get 205% increase this year. I'd like to know who's getting a 205%
Right.
increase.
So
why.
if you look on page 25,
Yep,
It has all of the positions.
Yep.
And it has the department division up top. So 4113, and you will see each position that's in there, their salary, and then if there are any credits. Go ahead.
But there's a lot of different individuals. Is 4321 strictly all of them grouped together? So I can assume that 205% increase is spread out over that whole department?
So you're talking about 4113, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
4321.
Okay.
4321.
Oh, 423 then.
Yeah,
4321.
4321.
Engineering,
Just trying
yes.
to make sure I understand I'm doing this right.
That's highway. No, I'm sorry, no, engineering,
Engineering.
That's engineering.
engineering.
So you can see the differences if you look. In the column, it has year-end analyzed total, and then it has the department request and the administration recommended. So you can see where they were at last year, and then you can see the increase per position.
Counselor, I would also add, that's a great one to pick because it's kind of an odd one. So engineering does a lot of project oversight, so their wages that get charged to the operating budget vary from year to year based upon the projects that they get to charge out and ones that they don't get to charge out. So in the current year, I know they're a little bit behind in charging out some of the projects, or some of those projects aren't coming to fruition to be able to charge out as much. And I think that's part of the variance that you're seeing in that particular division.
Thank you. I kind of thought it was spread out, but I couldn't really tie the
Right.
numbers together, so I thought somebody's getting a heck of a pay raise. I
No.
don't know if I know who they were.
There's also vacation and sick that cannot be charged off to projects, and that's why you'll see the line increase this year. We're gradually increasing it because in prior years, they were splitting the salaries right to projects when technically salaries for when they're sick and vacation do not qualify for projects. So that's why you're gonna see an increase until it gets to the point where we're fully covering their vacation and sick from that line.
Counselor Najin?
All right, thank you. Yes, along the lines of Counselor Glantz's question, can we get a summary of the ranges? They seem to be P58, M137. It's Greek to me. Is there an
Yes.
overview of what that is?
We can get you a legend, and then the grade step tables are in the union contracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to follow up on that, at our last meeting, I asked if there's a way that we can get those numbers that are
Highlighted, yeah.
frozen? Okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Najin?
And I guess the question that I have concerning the wages and salaries, so I'm looking at 2020, and we were at basically 360 employees. 2023, we're also at 360. We were at 352 in 2019. Now, 2020 through 2022 were deeply affected by COVID and also COVID funding, I think, in certain ways. I guess my question is, could we have another year to compare that would be a normative year? So for instance, like the 2023 actuals there, could we have like the 2019 actual if that was like a normative year as far as the spending was concerned, just so I could kind of, and I realize that everything's gone up, including the inflationary rates, but I just kind of want to get another baseline from before COVID in order to
Okay.
get a better idea of what we're looking at.
Counselor, one thing that I will offer, and it may not meet your needs, but all of those budgets are also online. So if you looked at, so if you want the 2019 actual, I would look at the 2021 budget because it will have the 2019 annualized.
Gotcha. Perfect, thanks.
Okay.
So the largest increase is the firefighters' increase in salaries of $325,499. The second is the police officers at $290,241. And again,
Where are we?
so we're on page 20,
Thank you.
or 21, actually. So as you had that discussion about what is contractual, salaries are contractual due to the fact that they're on the union contract. The salaries are, the only way that they wouldn't be is, of course, unfortunately, if you were to eliminate a position. But other than that, they are all contractual because they're all on salary tables. So in fiscal year 2018, the city made an accounting change to consolidate our utility charges so that in lieu of some of the charges shown as revenue and others offset in salary line items, we are now consistently showing a credit in the salary reserve for those costs. For fiscal year 2024, currently that total is a credit of $199,325 to the general fund. And that is for 2 quarters, so we still have 2 quarters to go, so that will be another $199,325 that will be credited, which a total of $398,650 that's credited to the general fund from the utility accounts. In fiscal year 2025, this credit is budgeted in the salary reserve at $412,205, which is $13,555 higher than current year. The city has 9 active employees that are entering the in-service retirement drop program, which reduces most of their salaries between 5% and 15%, depending on their labor union and employee contract. So if you look at, to give you an idea, if you look on page 25, where you have the employee listing, I don't know if there's one on 25, but on 26, if you look down in the division 4212, if you see a DP next to it, that means that they are one of those individuals that is 5% or 15% lower because they're in that category, just so you're aware of that. The code enforcement budget reflects a CDBG funding credit for the inspector of $65,150. So that includes salaries. We're going to be moving to overtime. Are there any other questions on salaries before we move to overtime? So overtime is on page 22. The overall increase is $42,531, or 1.7%. Although contracts, settlements, and step increases have some impact, additional replacements, hours, and depending on has produced increases in fire of $21,726, public works operations of $31,973, and it has a decrease in police at $10,608. And in general fund, general government, $560 decrease. Overtime for public safety is contractual, obligated within the union contract to cover the shifts. So I just wanted to give you that information. Any questions on overtime?
Counselor Galan?
Yes, thank you. Scott, the library is getting a 100% increase. What happened? I can't figure it out on a page 4351. I'm missing something, I guess. Library 4351, excuse me, office
40
space and tree work.
I was gonna say 4351
Yeah.
is open
Yeah.
spaces and tree work.
Right.
So they have had a lot of overtime, and as we go over their budget, I have a message on that piece. Let me get to that. Their overtime is due to covering assignments and emergencies that they've had. They have about 19 parks that they're responsible for, and they find that they're having a harder time filling positions. So to get the work done, they're doing more overtime.
I think the other thing that I would also add with the number of weather events, that's driving some of those, particularly with the tree work and so forth. So you'll probably see that not only in the overtime, but also in contractual services for tree work as well.
I mean, I don't like overtime. I'm not, and not that I don't think people deserve it. I think if you have enough overtime, you need another person. Because then it ends up being cheaper in the long run. Oftentimes, depending on what the benefits and salaries and things are gonna go. That's why I was asking, do they need another person to fix the problem? Do they need to have a day-night shift? Do they have, I mean, sometimes it's simply as rotating two guys, every other week to nights, and then nobody's being called in. I'm just curious. That's why I would come with that question, and I don't know who to ask.
What I would do, because we're going to cover the general, and then because Public Works is tonight, you're going to hit that division square on. You can ask that question again during
you.
that time.
Take notes.
Yes,
I'll look on the order.
prepare the answers.
So temporary wages are on page 23. Overall increase of $12,415, or 3.9%. The state minimum wage went up January 1st, 2024, to $14.15 from the $13.80. And it is estimated to increase to $15 January 1st, 2025. So that is what they are budgeting on. While salaries are contractual, temporary wages aren't, but just a reminder for those departments that have temporary wages, if they no longer have these positions, they would need permanent employees, which would cost the city additional funds with the benefits of health and retirement. So just keep that in mind. There's a decrease in the election. You'll see in the temporary wages of $19,997. This is due to 2 less elections in fiscal year '25 than in the current year. So she'll have 2 less elections next year, so that reduces that line. Increase in winter operations by $3,000. This is for CDL drivers to help out with plowing. Increase in parks and open spaces of $22,000. This impact, again, is on the minimum wage increase and the competitive wage market. Hired to assist with flower, landscaping, and tree care, maintenance for all parks, trails, cemeteries, sidewalks, open spaces, and athletic fields. These will also assist with downtown hardscapes, playground equipment, vacant lots, graffiti, and water elements such as the fountain, the pool, the splash pad. And again, just a reminder, there's 19 parks in Lewiston that they maintain. An increase in the armory.
Councilor Gallant?
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
4519 is not on the list of numbers that I could figure out what 4519 is. Or $30,000.
I believe, let me check, but I believe that's a rec.
That's Armory.
Armory, recreation.
I'm moving 4511 to 4541.
So that $30,000 that you're referring to, in the current year, we didn't need to transfer funds for the aquatic program. Next year, we will have to transfer the $30,000 for the aquatic. That's the city's contribution to the Kennedy Park pool, because we do not pay, our people that use the pool do not pay any revenues for that. So we have to pay lifeguards, temporary wages, and so on and so forth. Last year, we had a carryover due to the COVID years where we did not open. So we didn't have that funding last year. This year, we do. And that covers that portion of the lifeguards, like I said, pool, bathhouse monitors, and so forth.
So that was my next thing, the increase of 11,000 was on my next piece of,
Sorry.
no, that's okay, which is the transfer for the general fund of the recreational account to the activity account for the aquatic. So we'll be transferring in fiscal year 2025 about 24,000 to cover that.
So next year, we'll have a 4519 on the running numbers. Thank you.
A net decrease in library temporary wages totaling $3,588. So other fees are on page 23. Other fees are, this includes the mayor, council, any board stipends, along with the attorney fees. So you're going to see that this is remaining flat this year. Fringe benefits is on page 23 and 24. Overall increase of $330,679, or 2.8%. Fringe benefits are considered contractual obligations due to union contracts. As mentioned above, the only way the city could adjust fringe is to eliminate a position. Severance pay decreased by $8,000. Main PERS, which is our city retirement, increased by $630,539, which reflects the annualized impact of implementing the changes in the police salary tables, increase in wages, therefore increasing the retirement. The city isn't seeing an increase in the employer's share of contributions. The special police plan remains the same at 13.4%, along with the fire. So the city pays 13.4% for fire and police officers' retirements off of wages, and the regular PLD for all other employees is actually going down. Currently, it is at 10.2%. For fiscal year 2025, it'll be 9.9%. And then additionally, Maine PERS requires cities and towns to pay 5% contribution for employees that have retired and are rehired in place. Deferred comp decreased $16,509. More employees are joining Maine PERS. FICA, which is Federally Insured Contributions Act, increased $13,849. This is increased in the salaries and the minimum wage increase.
Counselor Gallant?
Let me back up for a second. The 5% that we have to pay if we rehire someone, how many of those do we have?
I can get that number for you.
And, it's 5% of the total pay?
Yes.
So it's kind of like a penalty in a sense by bringing somebody back who's already retired?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
But not in all cases, though, because depending on if they're part of the drop program, it would balance out with the reduction in salaries. Keep in mind, this applies if we hire somebody from the city of Portland that's retired and we hire them, we have to pay this 5%. So it's a reciprocal throughout all the municipalities in the state of Maine that participate in Maine State Retirement.
Thank you.
You haven't touched on them yet. You're reading in Fringe. I'll have questions about a couple of lines here.
Okay. So retirement health savings. This is a conversion of sick time. In some of the groups, vacation time is converted to fund deposits for post-retirement health cost. Contributions were estimated to increase $34,515 due to the budget needing to be completed before the actual calculation. The actual calculation was just given to me today. This line will need to increase another $14,515 to cover the actual. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Again, these numbers cannot be completed till after we're done the budget due to the fact that the contract, the effective date that ends is March 1st. So the calculations would have to wait until that last payroll, which is a week into March, before they can start the calculations of this. So just keep in mind that the budget will need to increase that $14,515 to cover, because this is a contractual in the union contracts. State,
I'm sorry, that's retirement health savings you're talking about?
correct. So the next one is the State of Maine Family Medical Leave. This is new to all cities and towns. The governor passed on July 11th, 2023. The governor signed into law the Maine state budget in 2023 Public Law Chapter 412, which includes the creation of this new program of paid family medical leave. Payroll contributions will begin January 1st, 2025. Begin ineligible 2026 workers will be eligible to take up to 12 weeks of paid family medical leave. The city is budgeting their 0.05% of the employee's portion for half a year, because it begins January 1st, 2025. So we have to budget for half a year, which is that $60,086. That's why there's a large increase there, because this is a very new program.
Do we receive reimbursement from the state, or is this an unfunded mandate?
This is unfunded. We have to pay this to the state.
This is an unfunded mandate imposed on all municipalities by the state government,
It's more than just municipalities, it's all
Sorry,
employers.
that's what I should have
Yes,
said.
all employers.
all employers above a certain employee count have to pay for that.
Okay.
The rules as far as, who, the eligibility seem to be very generous. They are still working out the details on how that qualifies. We also understand that there is going to be an employee contribution in the future. They haven't outlined what that detail looks like. And I'm not sure they've done any actuarials to determine if this 5.5% is going to be an adequate amount yet or not.
Okay, I heard 0.05%, and I heard 0.5%.
0.05,
0.05, okay.
yes.
City pension plan increased $1,066. Health insurance buyout decreased by a combined $747,379. This is based on our current experience rate. We budgeted 8.5% increase for half the year, and we ended up in fiscal year '24, the rates came in at 2.5% increase, so we saw savings this year, and upon our calculation for our estimate for next year. The decrease is due to a combination of the budgets last year for the 6 months was estimated at the 8.5%, as I mentioned, and ending up at the 2.5. So we will see a savings in the health insurance line for this year, fiscal year 2025. Healthcare educator remains flat. During the budget of 2024, this was reduced for the health educators' appointments. This is now all done online, except for a couple of the unions that had it written into their contract. All of us employees sign in, we submit our information, we submit our healthcare, our doctor's information. So it has reduced this line because we no longer see the healthcare individual. The account also covers the gym memberships, along with the credit from employees. You'll see, additionally, we cross-charge to other funds to offset for the additional gym membership. So you'll see credits from other funds. Boston Mutual remains flat. This plan was closed to new enrollees in 1989. Active employees pay the benefit, then it comes a paid-up policy upon retirement. That's why it remains flat. Flexible spending decreased $4,355. The decrease is due to employees forfeiting their funds if they don't use it all. It comes back. Health reimbursement arrangements increased $39,000. This reflects the anticipated usage of the funds and more employees electing the insurance incentive. The current offer is $1,200 for single coverage and $2,400 for employee, child, and family coverage. Workers' compensation is an increase of $327,867. This is in addition, $250,000 funding from the fund balance. And again, we went over this, I believe, when we did the audit information. The unfunded liability that is current is $4.7 million. We are self-insured. Total aggregate benefits paid for the calendar year 2023 was $1,109,971, which is slightly down from 2022 by $43,471. We paid $1,153,442. Our current fund balance, as Heather mentioned on Tuesday night, we go from our audited numbers. So as of the end of June 2023, our fund balance total is $1,711,229 in workers' comp.
Counselor Chittum?
Does that mean, Director Roy, that the 1.1 million can be completely funded out of that fund balance is dedicated to workers' compensation?
Correct. It's in its own fund, so it's directly related to just the workers' comp.
Okay, so that means that we have roughly a $600,000 credit if this recommendation of 1.1 million is taken away from that fund balance.
We're already, if you remember, I just stated that we're unfunded. So when we had our review, our actuary, we're unfunded by 4.7 of what they estimate that we will need.
We have been told by the auditors that we need $4.7 million of workers' compensation more than we have funds for in the fund balance.
Correct. And I can get you a copy of that report if you'd
Yeah, I'd
like.
like to see that because now I'm completely confused.
So what they do is there's an actuarial evaluation. So let's say there's 10 people out on workers' comp. Their current year costs for medical and indemnities and so forth is X. But that's just the current year cost. The actuarial evaluation projects that claim into the future and says, okay, at this point in time, because these are your claims at this point in time, this is what your deficit is. So right now, if you stopped the workers' comp, and let's say we did MEMIC or something else, we would still be liable for that $4.7 million hole.
Okay, and I understand that, Administrator Hunter, thank you. But what I'm confused about is the $1.1 million that's recommended for expenditure this year in workers' compensation, plus the, and I forget the number, the fund balance we have, 1.4 million?
No,
1.7 million?
So that differential goes to the unfunded liability.
Okay,
It
I'd like
goes
to-
to reducing that 4.7. So
I'd like
now-
to, okay, I'd like to see these numbers
Yep.
on paper so
Yep.
that I can figure out how all these things work, whether
Yep.
they're plus or minus, and, thank you.
Counselor Najin?
And just on that note, on average, I mean, it's probably difficult to say an average, but what do we spend out in workers' comp claims per year on it? Like, let's say
So
for
for-
23 and 24, what did we spend out?
2023, we spent and this is not fiscal year, this is calendar year, because they go by calendar year, is $1,119,971.
Okay.
So for calendar year, that's what we paid out for claims. And then in 2022, we paid out $1,153,442.
So it looks like we're basically covering what our liability will be
For
this
1 year.
Okay, yeah.
With a little bit of a cushion. What we're seeing ironically is not so much the count of the claims increasing, it's the cost of the claims. And we're now having some challenges, particularly with some of the public safety incidents with claims related to that as well.
Counselor Clamp?
Thank you, Scott. Does this include buyouts? I know under workman comp, sometimes you can negotiate with somebody and get them off the books.
It'll include the expense of the settlement, which will reduce the unfunded liability. There may be a portion that's not settled, so each settlement kind of works a different way, but that's the whole goal of settling those in the current year, is so that exactly your unfunded goes away.
Unemployment compensation remains flat. Again, we're self-insured. Fund balance total at the end of June 2023 is $39,081. On page 24, other, this increased $409,072, or 17.1%. This line item reflects both the internal and external billing for the municipal garage. The journal entry line reflects internal charges from other department divisions, which net out to zero for the general fund. This cash line reflects external billing in this case. Any questions?
Yes, can you explain that?
Okay, so our central garage, when we go over central garage, you'll see that, rents out vehicles to departments. So they charge each department, and you'll see that in all the lines. So when we're going over Public Works, when I talk about vehicle rental, that is that department renting out the vehicles. This gives central garage the money to do maintenance or replace vehicles instead of bonding for them. So it kind of pays for the replacements, the maintenance of vehicles down every year.
Councillor Chittum?
So, vehicles that are owned by the city, police cars, snowplows, fire trucks,
These cars are not in this category. They're the only ones that are not charged out. They have their own vehicles.
so I picked the wrong example then. Okay.
Fire.
Fire
And
truck,
fire, sorry. Sorry.
how about if I list the
Fire.
one, okay.
So those two public safeties are not included in that.
All right then. So vehicles that are used by administration, public works, all other vehicles are owned by the central garage.
Correct.
And rented to, on an hourly rate, daily rate,
Correct.
annual, whatever, to the departments that use them.
Correct. Every month they get billed.
Okay, so the snowplow that goes by my house
Correct.
is owned by central garage and rented then to the Public Works Department.
Correct.
And the Public Works Department owns no vehicles.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more clarification too. The water and sewer district vehicles, even though they are part of Public Works, are purchased through, we take care of them at the municipal garage, but the municipal garage does not own those either, or the school department vehicles that we take care of.
So those are owned by the enterprise funds that
Right.
bought them in the first place?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Councillor Najin?
Just to, I want to make sure I understand this completely. We don't own Central Garage. We contract with Central Garage to
No.
rent our vehicles.
Central garage is a department of the city of.
Right, okay, so what we're actually doing is we're
Correct.
quantifying the value of both the repair costs and the.
Replacement cost.
Yes, exactly, okay.
Correct.
So it's a fancy way to basically look at.
It's a cost accounting mechanism is
Gotcha.
what it
Okay.
is. Yep. And Counselor Chittum, to your point on what we couldn't cut, as Tracy and Kevin go through the various Public Works divisions, and they talk about vehicle rental, because you'll see fluctuations in vehicle rental. That's something that you can't cut, because the offset is going to be to this other charge. So the net impact is zero across all the divisions from that, for the internal charges.
Yeah, we cut it here, we have to add it there.
Exactly.
I've got another question on, so I know how the central garage bills out to different departments. Why is it in personnel services and fringe benefits?
That's just a legacy
Oh, okay.
thing. I mean, ever since I've been here, I think it was designed initially to cover the labor, and then we started, looking at the cost and the depreciation value and everything else. So that charge has morphed over the years.
Okay, thanks.
So the next is the capital outlay and the one-time repairs, which is on page 35 and 36. These are all funded through fund balance, as Heather mentioned Tuesday night. The request total is $3,197,145 before add-in projects from CIP totaling $2,495,000, bringing the recommended amount funded through fund balance of $5,692,145. This leaves a coverage of 10.38% of fund balance. The largest percentage is, the targeted percentage is 10%. or allows just under 617,177,000. The LCIP, which is recommended, recommendations on page 37, close the gap needed to reach the 80% cap, assumes fund balance using of 2,495,000 recommended on page 36. We are now at 13,275,952, which is over the 80% bond limit cap. So I don't know if you want to look at the capital tonight, or if you want to keep this for one of those general discussions that we have slated for another night.
So so this list on page 35 and 36.
Correct.
These are things that we could potentially reduce, or we could add more LCIP items to this
Correct. So
list?
these were the items that were recommended, pulled out of the operation and recommended to be covered by fund balance. So this is, the city council can go through these if you like tonight, or we could go revisit it during one of the general sessions.
Councilor Galan?
Thank you, Scott. My preference would be another night, I'll be honest. My question is, if we decided to go past the 80%, the numbers then would change, and we could have a discussion at a regular meeting, and that may give us less items to cut. So that'd be my logic, till we have a conversation about whether we're gonna hold the threshold of 80%. As we know, in the last 5 years, it has not been held. So chances are we might, as a body, decide to go over, but that would then allow us some more wiggle room. Would I be correct in saying that? You know, so I mean, if we go, so I don't want to, tonight, don't think I'm ready until I know how much money we have. Because how much money I have makes a difference on what I would pick to get rid of. That's what my thoughts.
Councilor Chittum?
I guess, Councilor Gallant, these are projects that would be funded from the fund balance. And I'm not certain, because that's not subject to the 80% rule. That would be only additional projects that were in the LCIP. Is that correct?
Correct. It's just, I think he's mentioning that because there were some projects from the LCIP that were moved to the fund balance. On the bottom of 36, there was 2,495,000 from the LCIP moved over to fund balance. So I think he was kind of bringing those two together.
I think his point is if there are items from the fund balance on page 35 and 36 that you don't wish to fund for whatever reason this year, that frees up fund balance to move more LCIP projects over.
Got that, okay.
And right now, just as a reminder, we're over the LCIP debt limit by $13.3 million. So there would be a lot of adjustment needed.
Right, right.
Councilor Nagy?
And just really quickly, in the list of line items, basically 73 through 77, those are listed as fixed charges, and it looks like the airport is in there, possibly. No, the airport's separate. Well, it is listed as a fixed charge. So ED is economic development, airport are both of these required, I guess is the question?
So,
What I'm trying to determine is,
the joint agencies' funding would need to be coordinated with the city of Auburn.
okay,
Anything from ED 73 through 76, those are 100% at our jurisdiction to be able to determine whether we wanted to fund them or not.
okay.
And you're correct, ED is economic development.
So if that discussion wants to be kept for another general, then we'll move on to Public Works.
If that sounds good to the rest of the council?
Yes.
And notice you haven't got your bulletproof vest yet, so we'll be easy.
Good evening, Kevin Gagne, Director of Public Works.
So Public Works, we're going to start with general government property, which is on page 49 and 51. The overall increase is $57,051, which is 11.1% increase. The new programs and services requests for this, under this division is $373,976 to hire a building division worker for the Armory at $70,374, a systems operation coordinator at $97,984.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Director Roy. I'm having trouble finding where you are.
Oh, sorry, page 49, but we're, currently, right now, we're going over what's on page 18 for the new programs. Kind of what I went over already with, when we were going over the wages. But usually with each department, we will mention it at the beginning. And again, these are not budgeted in the department. It's just a reminder under each department which new program and services falls under that department.
Okay, would you mind starting again, please?
Yep. So the new programs and services that fall under general government property and parking garage is a building division worker at the Armory at $70,374, a building division worker for systems operation coordinator at $97,984, a building division worker for police department at $91,144, and a building division worker for public bathrooms and parking garage at $84,474. And then there's an additional parking management service, $30,000. Those are all not in the current budget, just a reminder.
I just have a quick question on the building division worker for the public bathrooms and parking garage. Is that the position that we would need to fund if we fund the capital for the
Correct.
public bathrooms?
If you fund that public restroom, they would need a individual to take care of that, clean that.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Najin?
Just to circle back, concerning the parking garages in particular, continuing in this budget will be the security that we're paying for
Correct.
outside services? Okay.
Correct.
And then when I'm looking at the building division worker, systems operation coordinator, what exactly is that?
So I can let Louis Turcotte expand if I'm speaking correctly. This is to, right now we have cameras that PD is observing, but these are also cameras and gates in our parking garages. So this would be able to make, right now MIS is trying to manage that along with outside vendors. So this would be a technician to be able to monitor, help maintain those systems, to be able to know who's coming in and out, what's going on with that surveillance in those systems, so.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Louis Turcotte, I'm the Facilities Division Manager. Kevin's correct on the cameras, but this position would also cover, as broad as we can, the new technology we've brought in with access controls to improve security in the building. We're in the process of installing an intrusion alarm in City Hall, possibly talking about other locations in the future. We've also got our HVAC management system and building automation coming. So there's a lot of new technology that requires people to stay on top of the basics, whether it's licensing and standard operating procedures and that type of stuff. That's what this position would cover primarily.
Okay.
Councillor Chittum?
Thank you, Mr. Turcotte. The Armory has a position for $70,000. With this systems operator coordinator, I know there's new HVAC and new equipment at the Armory. How is that divvied up between the Armory division worker and the systems operator coordinator?
They're two separate positions. The HVAC systems would still be managed under that systems operations coordinator, but the position for the Armory specifically is for a a building maintenance monitor person that would be billed, I believe it's 85% to the Armory to assist with their building operations, and 15% of that would be allowed under the Facilities Department to utilize that person as needed for snow removal and some of the extra.
Okay, so just to clarify then, this 97,000, which includes fringes, is that correct? Director Roy?
Yes.
Okay, this $98,000 position then would be responsible for technology systems citywide.
Correct.
You talked about access entry at City Hall, we talked about new HVAC, we talked about parking garages. Are those gates under contract, or would those be under the purview of this new position?
As much as possible, because of there's a broad range of technology there, but as much as possible be under this position also.
Okay, do we have a job description for that position at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Nagy?
Just to come back to the, I hate to belabor this point, but, so we have a security company that is monitoring the garages. We also have equipment there that monitors the garages. And I guess the question is, when there's a problem in the garage, who do we call? Just so I understand, like, do we call the police or do we call the security company?
So it depends on the level of the problem. If the gate system that we have has a call for service button, during operating hours, that calls my department. We carry a cell phone with us for the, while the staff is on the payroll. And then after hours, it goes to 911. If the issue has to do with public safety, it goes directly to the police department.
Perfect, that's.
So now we'll start on page 49
Okay.
for City Hall. Sorry. City Hall building has an overall decrease of $13,092, or a decrease of 6%. Contractual services have a decrease of $13,692, so that whole decrease is right in the contractual services accounts. This current fiscal year, the budget for electrical and heating has been separated out. This is due to the new project we had with JCI controls. To monitor the savings, we have now split out all electrical and heating so that we can track how much of a savings we have. The three accounts,
Councilor
electrical. Oh, go ahead.
How do we heat City Hall?
Carefully,
Lots of activity up here, right?
Unitil, so.
Natural gas?
Natural gas.
It's natural gas?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Might as well stay close.
So these three accounts, electrical, heating, and utilities accounts, they all decreased together at $10,746. This is a consistent theme through locations that the JCI project has started. Not all buildings are included in that first round of the energy efficient program. There was a decrease in repairs and equipment of $5,243. This is due to the access control system service contract ending with no renewal. Cleaning decreased $2,000 from, this is the second year of the contract. It decreased $4,500 with the new line item that increased at $2,500, causing that decrease of $2,000. Repairs to building has an increase of $4,297 due to the new ESCO contract with Johnson Controls to measure the data for the savings on the energy efficient project that was completed this fiscal year. Other supplies, an increase of $600 due to the Share Center membership. This used to, I believe, be free when they were in the city building. Now that they have moved away from the city building, you will see that in a couple of departments. That's an increase for the membership to purchase stuff from the Share Center. So that completes City Hall building. Are there any questions?
Counselor Chittum?
Either I forgot to paste corrections in here. I'm looking at repairs to equipment, and that appears to be a drop of $48,000 from $77,595 in the revised budget for 2024 to $29,000.
Repairs to equipment is $29,352.
And that's quite a,
Recommended.
I'm not getting 15% from 77,959 or 595 to 29,351.
Counselor, we compare original budget to
Recommended.
the
Original budget, that makes a
Correct.
difference.
Yes,
Okay,
because
I need to
the
shift over a
revised
column.
budget includes fund balance carry forwards and transfers between the accounts. So we go based upon
Okay.
essentially what we did last year to what we're doing now. That's the
Thank you.
comparison.
I need to shift a column then.
It's okay.
Got it.
Counselor Gallant?
They requested 52,000 to do something, and you all said no. Will we be able to find out what the 52,000 is for buildings and structures that we're not gonna do? I'm sure it's windows and good things like that, but
That is moved to your fund balance, the capital and fund balance page that we mentioned before. So that will be listed on there.
so is there a way in the future that we could have a note or a star or an asterisk that says gone to fund balance? You know, to make it so people like me trying to figure out why we then do that to nothing?
Yep.
58, 52.
Thank you.
I still don't see it.
The next is 85 Park Street on page 49. The overall increase is 2,907, or 5%. The operating year, after repurposing this building from the state, the state rents this property at $15,000 as the Violation Bureau to house joint police agency services. This is a joint task force group that uses this building. This revenue is still in the budget, but the joint police agency plans to be moving out to the new police building. However, we kept the budget as is in case that there's any other opportunities to go into that building, so you will see it. The revenue, if they move out after August and move into the new police station, will then be 2 months' worth, which will be 2,500 instead of the 15. And then 2 months' worth of expenditures will be around 10,105. But keep in mind, if that building is closed, they have to keep certain things up due to the fire, the alarms and the fire extinguishers and everything in that building to keep it going. You can't just shut down everything. So there will be some cost if nobody goes into that building when they move out into the police department.
Just a question on that, is the 911 center still, is it moving there or no?
That is all contingent upon their LCIP request getting approved.
Okay, all right, thank you. Counselor Najin?
Which is 2.5 million, is that correct?
I don't think it's that,
Well, that's how much the overall
I think so,
refurbishment and
maybe
purchase would be.
between the two.
Yeah.
And then I know there's, at least the city of Auburn is interested in having discussions, at the county level as well. So, but yes, that is if there's no decision with the county, the intent is to have them move over to, that's been the location that has been selected by both municipalities. It just needs the funding now.
Okay.
And you are correct, it's 2.5 million in the CIP. So the contractual services in that line increased 3,157. That's an increase in the utilities of 2,157. Repairs to building increased at $1,000. This is outside service repairs for the building. Supplies decreased $250. This was with the move of police, the material was decreased for the need of the salt that's on the outside for the sidewalks and the electrical supplies. Oak Street Park is also on page 49.
Just
Overall,
One moment, Councillor Gallant.
Before we get started, thank you, Scott. Parking garages, near and dear to my heart. Do we make any money, or plan to make any money down the road? I mean, Portland has sold theirs, South Portland has sold theirs, Bangor has sold theirs. Everybody's getting rid of city parking, because it's not economical. There's no plus, even once you pay for them out. Have we ever considered looking into getting rid of our parking garages and then not being in the parking garage business? That's my question, just generally speaking. Thank you.
under the new services, you'll see the new service for somebody to run the parking garage of $30,000. We have, as Heather mentioned on Tuesday night, this will be our first year of seeing what revenues are actually coming in due to the fact that we weren't charging before because the arms were down. So we will need a year to actually see how much revenue is coming in, and looking at what is coming in currently, it's looking like some of the parking garages are exceeding before COVID.
And I understand that, but eventually we have to fix them. And it's gonna be millions of dollars to do that. And, you know, this might be a time to consider their value to cost, in a sense, if somebody wanted to purchase them all and we ended up with a net $5, $6, $7 million in the city and no longer have parking garages or the headaches. And I'm just curious if it's ever been considered.
It has been considered. I believe that you were furnished prior study. Obviously, the numbers have probably changed, but the information and the recommendations are probably still solid. You also got, I believe the entire council got the parking garage reports. Again, that doesn't reflect a full year of gates being operational, so probably FY24's report will be more meaningful. There's a balancing act where most contractors, and we can certainly look into it more, most contractors will assume operation but will not assume debt service. And part of the debt service includes maintenance and repair. So that would still be the city's responsibility unless, you know, we're willing to pay in excess of the revenues coming in. The other piece that may impact that a little bit is the obligation with the Bates Mill and the parking agreement with that facility and others. It would at least need to be navigated through the RFP process if we were looking at those services to be provided by a third party.
Thank you, just a good question.
Councillor Najin.
And just one point, I mean, there's certainly a lot of expenditures that go into the garage. I see that clearly. But one point to think about with the parking garages, where they're located, is both the economic development opportunities within the areas that we removed off-street parking requirements. So that's, I think, a big piece there. And then, again, coming back to that, and I'm sorry to kind of go on a side note, but coming back to the overall downtown parking plan, like if we could maybe revisit that and kind of figure out where the garage is sitting there too.
No, I understand, but I did research 3 or 4 large cities, and they got rid of them because of cost savings and looking at the future. So, you know, the parking plan could be adjusted if needed be, if we didn't own the parking garage and somebody else would have built them. I know we're obligated to a couple of our different entities due to negotiation that was done some time ago, but I'm just curious to find out, because on the books, they may be more valuable gone than here and somebody else taking care of our headaches.
All set? Oak Street Parking Facility on page 49. Overall increase of $29,136, or 61.9%. Contracted services increased $29,136. Increase in utilities of $3,030. This is due to the decrease in fiscal year '24's budget. That created a shortfall in '24. It looks like it was budgeted incorrectly. So to get it back to where it needs to be, there'll be an increase this year of $3,030. Electrical is decreasing $4,958. This is due to the replacement of the wiring and the lights from the JCI project that was completed this year. Outside rentals increased $7,000 due to the snow plowing and snow removal of the upper deck of this parking garage that wasn't done in prior years. Current level 1 and 2 are at their capacities, so they're expecting an estimate the use of that top level, so they're gonna have to clean it and remove the snow from that. Miscellaneous services have increased $20,000. This is that garage security service that was hired for the parking garage. That was approved from prior council on October 18th meeting for this fiscal year. This is a split between 3 garages totaling $60,000 to MGS Services. Any questions on the Oak Street?
I just have a question on that. So on the contract that we have entered into with the security company, that's binding through the end of, can we sever that at any point?
It's fiscal year.
Fiscal year, okay. And that's the end of next fiscal year?
We have not entered, current contract is at the end of June.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Canal Street in Centerville parking garage is on page 50. The overall increase of $21,565, or 65.4% increase. Contracted services increased $21,565, that's total. Utilities increased $418, while electrical is decreasing $1,993. Miscellaneous services have increased $20,000. Again, that's the security service mentioned in the Oak Street above. Outside rental increased $1,000 due to the plowing and snow removal contract. Service fees, it's a new expenditure account. These fees are charged per transaction for the new system that was put in the parking garage this year. So you'll see that in the 3.
Credit card commission fees.
Correct. So in order to use the machine, they take a fee portion of it. Chestnut Street parking garage is on page 50. There's an overall decrease of $4,169, or a decrease of 9.9%. Contracted services decreased $4,169. This is due to a decrease in electrical of $5,129, a decrease in outside rental of $3,000, and a decrease in printing of $100. This is offset by an increase in utilities of $420, repairs to building $200, and service fees, again, as we mentioned in the above one, of $3,420, which is the new fee. The fixed charges is the land lease with the LA Railroad Company for the Lincoln and Cedar Street lot. That is flat at $3,960. Any questions on that before we move to 7?
All of these garages have printing services. What are we printing?
The tickets, the printing,
Ticket?
and other items.
And the receipt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Southgate Gateway parking garage is on page 50 and 51. Overall increase of $18,615, or 26.5%. Contracted services increased $18,615. Increase in utility of $428. A decrease in electrical of $4,475. An increase in repairs for building of $230 due to the increase in safety issues with the stairs, and service fees of $2,532. Again, this is that new expense for the fee charges for the credit card. Miscellaneous services have an increase of $20,000 due to the garage security service. The fixed charge is the land lease that we have a Franklin Trust for 50 years and has a periodic escalator. Any questions before we move on to Lincoln?
Counselor Chittum?
Thank you, Scott. I noticed that the utilities have gone up uniformly, as you would expect, on all the garages except the Oak Street, I'm sorry, and you may have explained this. Why is Oak Street nearly twice as much an increase as the other utilities?
Right. So it looks like they under budgeted in 2024. So the utilities are going up that $3,030 because in 2024, it looks like it's under budgeted. So that's why it's such a large increase.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Lincoln Street parking garage is on page 51. An overall increase of $2,089 or 4.4%. Contractual services increased $2,089. Increase in utilities of $1,392. A decrease in electrical at $2,313. Service fees of $2,532. Again, this is that new charge for the credit card. That is Lincoln Street. Are there any questions on that before we move to Public Works?
Counselor Chittum?
Yes, I do. I see Lincoln Street is swept out, but the others aren't.
The sweep-in service,
Right.
do you know why? You guys sweep only,
I'm gonna let Louis do that.
Mr. Turcott has the answer.
Is it Lincoln Street has
Lincoln Street.
yes.
sweeping service? There's two parking garages that have an outdoor parking lot associated with them. Oak Street's the other one, and then, so we carry a cost to sweep that outside garage. It's usually a payback to our highway department.
So those surface lots are then part of the garages?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All set? So if we're all set, we'll go back to that page 18 for the new services. So again, the budget does not include any of these new services or program requests. For Public Works, they're requesting $474,600 to hire 2 solid waste workers at $156,462, 2 mechanics Class A at $180,784, 2 temporary Class 1 mechanics at $78,854, the encampment cleanup contract of $20,000, the below-ground trash containers at $21,000, and the project management software at $17,500, which you will see the remaining $52,500 in the utilities account, because this is split between the 4. Any questions on?
Counselor Chittum?
Thank you. Below-ground containment, are those the roll-offs at the transfer station?
No.
What is a below-ground?
So these are, they look like a normal trash receptacle that you would see a trash can in a park. We may have,
Megan's got an answer for us.
and we have some pretty cool pictures to share too.
And unfortunately,
I wanna
I
see-
forgot to
I don't believe we have them
forward
tonight,
those.
so.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Megan Bates, Deputy for Maintenance and Operations at Public Works. The underground trash receptacles are just like they sound. They go into the ground. I don't want to give you, I'll just tell you it's an approximate 15 feet into the ground. And instead of having someone empty the trash receptacles on a daily basis and lifting it up into a truck to empty it, these will be tapped down, maybe on a weekly basis, maybe every other week, and they will be emptied they'll be emptied once a year versus on a weekly basis or after every event. We're going to be, if they're funded, we'll put them in high-traffic areas. They look like a regular trash receptacle above the ground, but they go about 15 feet down.
So we have a
We tap them
compactor,
down.
we have a compactor that runs around and compacts this material?
It will be simply, it's like a metal bar that you just take in and you tap it down.
So somebody's standing.
Exactly, yeah.
How do we deal with odors and flies and the
There's a
other-
flange, so there's no odor that comes out.
I'm sorry, say that again?
There's like a flange that prevents the odors from coming out. The city of Portland put these in, and they found it just hugely successful, so we wanted to go that route also.
It's like a barrier that keeps venting from coming out, but allows the trash to go in.
Okay.
And there's no way for anybody to be able to get into it. It's just, the hole is just big enough to put litter in.
Okay, and do we have places and the quantity and where these would go if this project is approved?
Again, we put them in high-traffic areas. No, we haven't thought up really in detail what we would propose, but we would want others, we would want input from others.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Consideration is near some of the parks or some of the downtown where we're going down and having to clean that often. That would be useful.
Counselor Najin?
Just a quick question on the ash hauler. So that's a new position? Is that
Correct.
So what do we do? How do we get ash into the landfill now? Like,
John is not here tonight. Megan handles, I'll let her answer that.
Right now, we have a contract with Almighty Waste, and they do the hauling for us per haul.
and so what is the offset concerning what we're paying for the services versus the employee?
We have a new contract with them, and I don't have the cost analysis here.
I can email.
I can
and-
share that, but we can do it a
Gotcha.
lot less expensive, yeah.
I'll email to get the offset.
Counselor Glant?
Thanks, Scott. Encampment cleanup contract. Is that our people, or are we hiring someone?
Outside crew to be hired, and Auburn, City of Auburn currently does that.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is not relocation, this is simply going in and cleaning up after an encampment has been moved?
Correct.
And would that be a contract for a year, or is that, what's the timeframe on that?
I believe it would be for a year period, but it would be based on, there wouldn't be a flat fee. They would have to, per site that they visited. That's our estimation on annual contract.
Okay. Counselor Najin?
And just on that piece as well, so is that because we don't have the staffing in order to cover, or because we have employees that do not want to manage those pieces, or like why would we be contracting outside when we've cleaned up the encampments on
So
our
I can
own before?
I can let Megan chime in, but I can share with you that the encampments that we've done, they're not planned. It's not like we're gonna do this in March, or we're gonna do this in August. They're pretty extensive, so you're putting a bunch of people that are taking off other things, which are either street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, and we're talking about highway and open space crews, so it can be people that are, we're spending time to do tree service, and they're out there taking care of an encampment. And then there's different hazards that were out there. So you've got all the biohazards on top of all the trash. So it's a health risk as well to our crews, and this is a specialty contractor that takes on that liability and has expertise in dealing with the different situations. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Very well.
Counselor Glant?
I just want to highlight what he said. I know a couple contractors do this work. They can pick up 800, 900 needles at a site. We don't want to have that, because one of our people get pricked or hit, we'll be having another workman comp for who knows how long. It's money well spent to have somebody go into encampment. You spend time down there, you've seen them, Josh, I've seen them. It'd be much better to have an outside agency.
As a follow-up, so we do have crews that are trained and staff that are trained building facilities. We have a highway and open space crew. So we have that ability on the crews, but not everybody that's on a cleanup.
And just as a follow-up on that, because I'm looking at the cost of $20,000 and it seems rather low. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, there's a portion in which some of the encampments, there's like feces removal, there's like sewage, gray water, all those other pieces. Does that cover that, or is that just like materials?
That would have to be something that would be talked about as part of the contract on tip fees, that sort of thing.
Okay. I'm done grilling on
We could get more details on what Auburn's experience is with increased cost versus what they contracted out.
So we're going to move to page 60, Public Works Administration. There's an overall increase of $11,754, or 3.7%. Personal services increased $13,956. There is 5.5 employees in this department. 1 employee is split between utilities and general fund. Contracted services decreased $2,346. Decrease in telephone of $643. A decrease in in-service training of $1,750. This is due to removing the MMA along with some supervisor training that's not going to be needed for fiscal year '25 that was budgeted in '24. Fixed costs increased $144. This is due to the dues for American Public Works Association membership for the increase. That is Public Works Administration. Are there any questions?
Councillor Gallant?
Where does training fall into any of this? As I go through the lining items, I don't see a training line, and if we're trying to get mechanics up to speed, or has that ever been thought of being done, or is it hidden, or I can't see where you're sending somebody off to be trained for a couple of weeks?
Sorry, that's in-service training. So in every department, you'll see a in-service training. Those are places that we go for training. That's the line that we put our training under.
So we don't have a department-wide training budget. We
It's
actually
in
put the
each.
training in each division, and this one is administration. So you're looking at admin and
Thank
So
you.
when we get to the engineering, you'll see a line for that.
Councillor Chittum?
I'm just wondering what kind of training can be obtained for $360?
I've been in the utilities, so I'm not sure what Mary Ann, I think they use main,
Typically, it's the Public Works Conference, the main conference.
correct.
And it's usually affiliate group meetings through the, like, Maine Municipal Convention, things like that.
The Highway
Okay.
Congress.
All right, I'm envisioning going off for a 3-day seminar on truck maintenance or, okay, so, all right, now I
And
understand.
this is the administration division, so
Yep.
it's myself, some of the deputies, not necessarily all of the crews.
Yeah, thank you.
The engineering department is on page 60. You'll see an overall increase of $86,141, or 70.4%. Personal services increased $86,104. This is due to, as mentioned earlier, engineering hours that cannot be budgeted to a project, the non-project hours, including their sick, their vacation, when they're working on other items, estimates that aren't project-related. So that's due to the increase of what you're seeing in this line.
Councillor Chittum?
Is there a corresponding reduction in project-related? Is this a new process whereby you're charging these directly to the department, the engineering department?
In the past, the line was going over, and our salary reserve was covering it. So we're trying to get away from that and trying to put the actual of what should be charged in that department into that line, so we show the actual.
So this is a new accounting mechanism then, this year?
Yes, so we tried to gradually, because last year it would have been a large increase, so we tried to gradually put more in this year to cover the actual.
This is a shift. In the past, we were trying to go heavy on billable hours. So, if it was the CSO engineer and the water, you're charging a lot to water and sewer designs and to the utilities. Some of the federal projects, we're having more federal projects, we're having more grants, and you can't always charge those projects in the design of the early phase. So you get a reimbursement, and we're not seeing that in our normal operations. So the billing is lagging, and the reimbursement is lagging, or it's not available. So we're trying to cover more of the base salaries in an actual line item. So it's not a change, it's just a shift in where we've been able to historically charge and where we're actually charging.
Right, and that was my initial question. So we see a corresponding reduction then in project costs that would relate to the increase, this 200% increase in regular salaries. It is no longer able to be charged to a particular project, so that project cost would be reduced.
Slightly,
Okay,
yep.
all right, thank you.
Counselor Najin?
And so we're looking at a 205% increase on non-project hours based on projects that are already not shovel-ready, but about to be shovel-ready from the LCIP and other projects that have been already approved? Is that correct? And I guess my question behind that, and I think it ties back to Counselor Chittum's question, is when we budget in the LCIP, do we usually include the engineer's hours in the budget?
Yeah, so it depends on the funding source. So if we're talking totally a locally administered project, then we can plan on 100% DOT money. If it's a MPI, now it's 50%. And there's different ways that we have to actually, so right now, we have things that are in the queue that we're investing time in to get an application and concept design, things like this, and the funding's not there. So if it's shovel-ready, then usually the plan spec estimate, it's all done. Those hour bills are pretty easy. It's in the preliminary and the design phase.
Okay, so this is all speculative. Gotcha, okay.
Yep.
So in the engineering department, there are 7 employees. Contracted services decreased 1,197. The vehicle rental decreased 9,856. This is due to one of their vehicles that they were renting from the central garage that is now under the codes department. They are no longer using this vehicle, codes is, so you'll see codes increase. The offset is increased by miscellaneous services, 7,322. This is due to Maine DOT's fund formula changing. The city's match has increased from 9,723 a year to 13,384. The in-service training is increasing 1,382 for the GIS and Asset Management Conference that will need to be gone to. Supplies increased 1,450. Small tools have the largest increase at 750. This is due to replacement of tools that are old and need to be replaced. Fixed charges decreased $216. This is due to the dues for the engineer license renewal. This is a biannual due that is due, and it's this year, this fiscal year will be paid. So in fiscal year 25, it will not be in the budget. So that's for the decrease. Are there any questions on the engineering?
There are other dues in addition to the engineering. We pay engineer licenses, they're biennial renewals.
We pay
Correct.
one that's biannual. So
Okay.
we're
And-
paying that this year, so you won't see it in the budget for next year. That's
Right,
why
but-
the line's reducing.
If I remember correctly, that's an even number of dollars, so there are other dues that are included in this $1,808 line.
Correct.
Okay.
Let me-
Why is small tools and implements, did we sell them off in last year? Why is that a negative $250?
Small twos is an actual increase.
Yes, from minus $250. What happened last year that we had a revenue?
So we used to be able to build DOT projects for some of those tools used for projects, survey equipment, things like that. DOT is no longer allowing us to build for those. So we used to get the credits back. We got credits for printing charges, the overhead, all of that ran through that account. And that is no longer an allowable charge to incorporate in a DOT billing.
Okay, so we knew that when we put the budget together for last year, that we were no longer going to be able to?
Correct.
Okay.
And the other dues, Macapwa, APWA membership, engineering. So we're at,
It's right there. American
Yep.
Society of Civil Engineers dues, there's 4 dues at $291
Right.
apiece. so that's 1,164. There's American Public Works Association for engineering at 184. There's Water Environment Federation for 2 engineers at 185 apiece, so that's 370. And then the main GIS user group is $90.
Okay, why is water under engineering as opposed to the water department?
These are for engineers to attend training, and that's where they're
okay.
covered. Correct.
All right.
Yep.
And these various trade and professional organizations, are we getting, loaded question here, are we getting the bang for the buck on these? Are we going to conferences? Are we going to trade shows? Are we taking advantage of online training?
We're definitely taking advantage of online training. I think during COVID, that was much better than it is now. It's actually gone to more in person. Typically, every other year, we'll try to get down to Boston with a couple of members. I know that the sewer treatment plant generally sends most of their team down for a multiple-day event. We typically try to do one overnight and stay. It's been pre-COVID since we've been down there. We try to keep it in-state, and we try to leverage that. And the annual ASC training has been typically right here in Auburn, so we try to attend that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
All set. Highways on page 61. There's an overall decrease of $552,995, 21% reduction. Public services increased $170,919. These are increases in steps. There are 29 employees under highway. Contracted services increased $68,475. This increase is in street line painting for $60,210. This is due to the increase of the cost of the material for the street lining. Miscellaneous services, $7,716. Due to the weather camera subscription, this allows Public Works to be more efficient in planning results in cost savings associated around weather conditions for various year-around events such as line and traffic marking, paving, and winter operations. Supplies decreased $8,850. The largest decrease is in the tearing materials of $13,530, attributed to a decrease in the quantity of hot patch from 1,000 to 850. The cost stays the same at $92. The largest increase is in department apparel of $3,538 for increase in boot allowance per union contract, and last year's reduction of that frozen position, so that amount needs to come back in, so you'll see the increase. This is a contractual obligation for the union. Fixed charges increased $601. This is the dues for DigSafe. It's a membership estimated at 10%. Amounts haven't increased to 60% this year. This is a membership that gives the city notice when contractors plan to excavate on city sidewalks and roads. Capital outlay decreased $784,140. This is due to, if you remember, Heather mentioned on Tuesday night about that supplemental appropriation that was put in the budget when the budget was close to being done. The evaluation came in higher, so the council chose to use those funds instead of decreasing the tax rate. So that is highway. Any questions on highway?
Councillor Chittum?
Yes, could you explain again, please, the miscellaneous services, the $7,600, $7,700 increase?
That's due to the weather camera subscription. So they have this, they put in weather cameras last year, and this is the subscription. This allows Public Works to plan results for cost savings.
So are these physical cameras that are located at various places around the city and all feed to the garage or somewhere? So you can see whether there's ice on a road?
I think Meadigan's taken the podium, but they're actually in there are real time feed to our supervisors that are getting real feed. But I'll let
There are 2 cameras, one at, near the Veterans Memorial Bridge and one next to the Operations Center on River Road. These are amazing technology that we have here. It will tell us actually the surface temperature, gives us a weather report of what's coming, not just what we see on the camera. If it's raining or foggy, it actually has a defrost. You hit a button, it defrosts the camera, so we are absolutely going to see what's out there. It does a host of other things, and I wish I had our highway operations manager here this evening. He could probably speak to you about 30 minutes on it. It's really amazing. It's been a huge help.
We also use onboard sensors for temperature on the supervisor vehicles, so they know what's going on real time as they're patrolling around. In the past, it would require somebody actually coming in to physically check those roads. This allows staff to stay home and come in on a better time and not be patrolling and be responsive in a good way.
Are there plans to install more of these cameras? 2 locations are wide apart. This is the first year we've had this, because this subscription has never been budgeted before. So is there a long-term plan to install more? And if so, is that included in the LCIP, or would that be future operational budgets?
We would like to do that. Right now, we're just sticking with the 2 that we have, and but you may see an additional one next year. That would be great.
Thank you.
Councillor Najin?
And I just wanted to check real quick, so that licensing for the 2 cameras that's $8,000 a year, is that correct? Is that how much it costs? Yeah, so it's 8,116, it looks like.
Yes, and also that was under MIS last year.
Okay.
And because it's in no way connected to the network, we just went ahead and put it under highway.
And just as a follow-up on that, if we add more cameras, do we pay more in the licensing fee, or no?
We would pay more.
Okay.
And they take care of those. The only thing that we do is move them. If anything breaks on them, they cover it completely. They just ship us a new one.
Councillor Gallant?
Councilor Scott, thank you. Are these usable by the police and fire? Seems to me they'd be a good tool for those departments to be able to tap into as well.
Right now, we can look to see if we can share that with them. I don't think that's
I would think that, a
we're
patrolling police officer might
we're
want to
not
know.
locking it down. It's not security. I don't know that we're recording anything.
Right.
It's like our traffic cameras. They're just looking at traffic. So this one right now is giving a feed to our highway staff.
Right.
But we could share that or look into sharing that video if police and fire were interested.
Yeah, there might be some, if they get a fire call at 2 o'clock in the morning, you might need to know what the road conditions are, and that'd be my thought. If we're going to have it, if we can share it amongst departments, knowledge is powerful. Thank you.
So that annual subscription is $5,000. The other little increases in the department, I just touched upon the largest, which was that, but there's little increases in other items in that line item. So winter operations is on page 61 and 62. There's an overall decrease of $61,945, or a decrease of 4.2%. The public service decreased by $36,651. They take, when they do their winter operations, they take a 5-year comparison on storms. Contracted services, you'll see remain flat. Supplies decreased by $25,796. This is mostly in the other supplies of $23,034 for the salt and the calcium. The quantity of salt is staying the same, but the rate is decreasing from $83 of fiscal year '24 to $80 in fiscal year '25. A decrease in construction material of $2,762 due to this first year's having the sandbox repaired in fiscal year '25. That is one of the items that we removed and put in to be replaced through fund balance. So that's that decrease. Fixed charges increased $507. It is all in the meal line, as you'll see. In the union contracts, when an employee works over 8 consecutive hours, This is in the union contract, so that's a contractual obligation that the city has per the union contract.
Counselor Glant?
Councilman Scott, thank you. How many employees are we talking? That the whole department, the meals?
That's-
Or is that
that's-
for like a select few?
That is whoever's called in to work during highway
Could be
operations.
anybody in the department.
Right, so right now, all crews are hired with the plan that they're going to plow either an A team or a B team roster.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Niji?
And just checking on, so on the 17.5% reduction in wages, regular wages, that's based on the 5-year projection and not on, I just would like maybe to get some feedback on, one, how it's affecting your costs concerning the blitz plowing for downtown, and then also, are we looking at additional costs for the fact that we're now requiring students to walk 1.25 miles to school as opposed to 1 mile to school? And do we have a mapping system in which we're plowing those sidewalks, to the schools, I guess is the question. Because I know in the past, we've had different formulations for how we plow. So I'm just curious to all those pieces.
So I will let Megan jump in as well. One thing I will offer in the regular salary account, that is a cross-charge between highways and parks. So it's not like we reduce this and we have an overall savings. You're going to pick up that offset in either highway or in parks.
Okay.
So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But Megan, if you want to jump in on the downtown blitz.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you had wanted to talk about the routes or the
Well, like
priority.
two pieces. One,
Okay.
the downtown blitz, is that actually saving money the way that we're doing it now? Or is it just more efficient as far as like staffing is concerned?
It's more efficient for staffing. I can't really answer for sure as whether it's a cost savings, but it sure is helpful to have those employees during the day with all of the services that we need to provide during the day. When we don't have when the employees are working at night, it's very challenging. And as far as the sidewalk routes, yes, we do have priorities, and those are around the schools.
Okay, and we've extended that out like a quarter mile past, like what? or-
Those routes have not changed. That would have to be something that would be approved by council.
Okay.
Counselor Chittum?
Can we talk a little bit about the brine? I understand we are now using a brine system. Is that on roads and sidewalks as well, or just sidewalks? How is that working? That's new this year?
It is new this year. I believe it's both.
Yeah, it is new this year, and we're using them on the streets and some of the sidewalks. We're trying to get, I'm going to look to Phil, did we get the tanks for the sidewalks? Okay, so strictly the streets then, but there is a plan absolutely to put this material on the sidewalks.
And that's covered under what used to be the salt budget. Do we make the brine ourselves?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we still buy the salt, but presumably less of it. Okay,
That's
thank you.
correct.
All set? Sidewalks is on page 62. This is all, capital outlay has been moved to the fund balance that we mentioned earlier on what you'll be reviewing for cost at the general budget meeting. So streetlights are on page 62. Overall increase of $123,221, or 19.9%. Public services increased $21,682. There are 4 employees under the streetlight. Contracted services increased $17,749. An increase in utility of $13,162. This is due to the Gulf Island Station, the pump station, which the streetlights are powered from there, so the expense is allocated here, and the credit is credited in the water. Increase in vehicle rental for $2,455. This is due to a new rental from a trailer from Central Garage, which is for wires and cable reels. Increase in repairs to Signal, $3,600 for repairs for the PED buttons, which are the accessible pedestrian signals. Supplies increased $83,650. Construction material increased $67,400. This is based on historical use of materials of poles, cross arms, wires, and etc. Increase in other supplies of $13,250. This is due to the replacement of drivers, the LEDs. Increase in small tools for a crimper kit for aluminum wire. Fixed charges increased $140. This is for an additional dues under international associations for electrical inspectors. So that is streetlights. Are there any questions on streetlights?
Councillor Chittum?
Thank you. Does streetlights include traffic signals?
This account does cover both of those, but
Okay.
where they are separate systems.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yes.
Do we do all of our own traffic signal maintenance, that none of that is contracted out, or do we contract out some of it?
Dan Rodriguez is here. He's the electrical superintendent, and I'll let him take that away.
Good evening, Dan Rodriguez, Electrical Superintendent, as Kevin just said. We do contract some of our work out for traffic signals, but typically we do most of it in-house. There's been a steep learning curve as 3 of the 4 employees are new, including myself, to the department within the last 2 to 3 years.
So one of the things that, are we learning to do timing and adjusting of the electronics in the signal cabinets ourselves?
No.
We are learning that. However, those changes need to be done by a traffic engineer. That is typically a contracted employee with AVCOG, the ATRC committee.
Right. Okay, thank you. Have all of our street lights, and I'm not talking about signals now, I'm talking about lights, have they all been converted to LED, or is that program still in process?
They have all been converted with the exception of a handful that were missed. There are 4 in Kennedy Park, or 5, and there's 1 on Kevin Lane that I'm aware of. And there may be others, but 99.9% of them have been converted over.
Okay, that's good news. Now, I remember back a number of years ago, we had an energy czar on staff who advocated, and I think he drove the program of removing superfluous streetlights and converting from sodium and vapor lights to LEDs. Have we tracked the cost savings as a result of that conversion?
We've seen savings to a certain degree of being able to say that light saved so much, not to that granularity, but we have seen a savings in power.
Okay, and are those numbers available? Is the data there that justifies the
Oh.
expense of converting this?
Between Dan and Alan Ward, we could definitely pull the numbers together. It's not something we report or track monthly or quarterly.
Mm-hmm. I'm not asking for the numbers, I'm just trying to get across that if we are going to embark on a cost-saving program of converting these lights to LED because of A, energy saving, and B, most importantly, cost saving, that we actually follow through and quantify that. And I'm not pointing fingers anywhere, I just want to make certain that when we embark on these programs, we're actually justifying them after the fact.
I believe we did when that conversion happened, and that changeover from regular lamps to the LEDs, and it reflected in the budget. But I'll see what report was done, and we can look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Najin?
Just coming back to the timing piece and AVCOG, and the fact that the vast majority of our roads, or major roads anyways, are either MDOT funded or supported. And so I guess the question there is does Maine Department of Transportation have a responsibility to monitor our timing and to go through a review process over a period of time? Because I can tell you at certain points in time during the day, depending on where I'm driving in the city, the lights make no sense. And so I'm just curious as to how we're keeping up on that on main roads.
So I started in engineering and did some traffic signal work. Went to utilities for 23 years. But things don't change. Drivers are very smart. They know when the light's not working right. We've heard the complaints. We have the same issues. So there's been several upgrades that have happened. East Avenue corridor was just upgraded. Dan and his crew with a contractor have worked on some interconnects to try to make sure that coordinated intersections are actually communicating. That was one of the first things that we've been doing over the last year and a half, coordinated with AvCog, was to look at our timing, to look at the coordination, because the corridor actually comes down Court, across the bridge, up Main, and then off whatever arterials you're going from there. And it hasn't been coordinated, it hasn't been working. So what Dan has been working on, and as well as Auburn, is making sure that each of the intersections, all of the sensors, whether it's a PED button, whether it's a traffic sensor, are working, and then the intercommunications are working, and that's where we're at now. The next phase is actually look at the timing. Dan just met last week with the consultant that was looking at that timing. The plan was to just put back what we had, and then we can try to tweak from there. We're working through that process now, but there's several lights that are either in full recall or there's a PED issue. PED buttons have been taking down the coordination of a lot of intersections. We've also seen just old cabinets, old wiring. Dan's been repairing a lot of shorts, replacing wiring, electrical conduit that's been shorted out. So just trying to get that up and running, and then we work with AvCog and engineers to get that timing adjusted.
And just as a follow-up on that piece, you know, there are the high crash areas for pedestrians that are obviously a challenge. And I don't see, in the street lighting piece, we wouldn't be like highlighting expenses for any type of upgrade on any of those intersections, is that correct?
So right now, if it's an upgraded intersection, then we can get MDOT money. What we've been doing is taking care of the actual hardware, the wiring, the signals, the detection. It gets a little further into right-of-way to try to adjust ADA ramps. So some of our PED buttons are forced to be in a place where it's not ideal because of right-of-way and timing issues. And we're trying to get the hardware up and functioning. Ideal world, we would do the whole thing, fix the crosswalks, fix the signals, and do that. So we're trying to get that better coordinated. Right now, Dan, we do get money from MDOT. The latest agreement, this is a 2-year agreement so far. They basically came out and said DOT owns all the intersections hardware. We're under a maintenance and operation agreement with them where they're reimbursing and giving us funds to be able to fix those, repair those. So we're looking to see how we can leverage that. We're trying to have all same equipment, so detectors, monitors, so that between Lewiston and Auburn, we've done that similarly on the water utility side, where they've got the same computers as we do, and if we've got an issue with SCADA, we can change things out for local support. So we're working to do that.
Councillor Chittum?
Yeah, just to lighten things up a little, pun intended. Has someone reported to you the pendant that's broken at the intersection of Pond and Sabatis?
Not till now.
Okay, all right. Consider it reported. Thank you.
Thank you.
So waste and recycling collection is on page 62. There's an overall increase of $68,617, 7.4%. Personal services increased $6,439. This is due to the actual allocation time from other divisions. So there's no employees in this division. It's charged from different divisions. Contracted services increased $62,178. The waste collection service per contract is going up 6%, so that's $55,194. Vehicle rental, $5,984, is due to the increase of 4 days with the rental request from the central garage. Outside rental of $1,000 for a rental of a wood chipper for 3 weeks instead of last year. It was in the budget for this current year, fiscal year '24, for 1 week. So that is the waste recycle and collections. Do you have any questions?
Counselor Chittum?
Thank you, yes. How long is our Casella contract? When does it end?
We are looking to enter a new agreement now and trying to be coming to talk with you more about which direction we want to go with waste collections.
We do have a LCIP request for a dramatic change in the methodology of
Correct.
collecting curbside waste.
Correct.
And that's going to be a conversation that's brought back at another time?
Correct. Right now, Megan and John Kaczynski, he's our solid waste and environmental specialist, are working closely with other towns as well as Casella to take care of the problem areas that we foresee, to be able to have a discussion that we can actually have some answers and some reality checks with. So we've been talking with administration to try to get some good information before we bring it back to you to have a discussion.
I'd like to hope that Casella isn't the only game in town and that we're considering discussions with other entities.
We have some options, but they come at a cost.
Okay.
Megan, do you want to chime in?
Do you have any idea when that conversation about contracted waste and recycling collection will be?
I'll let Megan update you on what discussion she's having with other towns, and then talk with Heather about when we might be ready to bring it back to you guys.
Just to let you know, when we go automated, it would be in 2026. Casella is not the only game in town. However, we would have to do probably 2 different contracts, one for, because we will have to do a manual in some areas of the city. And Casella is aware of that. They understand that. They have what's called a pup truck that will take care of some of the more challenging areas. But I did find a contractor out of Augusta that would be interested in putting in a bid. But right now, I'll be honest with you, we're really just looking at Casella. We think that they can do the job. They are incredibly familiar. They've been doing the streets of Lewiston for over 25 years. We actually did it in-house up until 1984, and then since then it's been Casella. So these foremen, I'll say, have been with Casella for that amount of time, and they know the challenges, they know the streets. So.
And I recognize that we have a connection with Casella through the recycling facility, and I suspect that creates an incentive for us to stay with them for the collection aspect.
I would say they're different contracts. I just think that Casella would be a better company for the automated waste, but they also take care of. It's Casella, but it's named a different company on. I think it's Alfred Plord that takes care of our bulky waste.
Okay.
As well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Najin?
Just as a quick aside on the Casella contract for recycling, currently we do not pay tipping fees, is that correct? And do we know when that ends?
I can get that information for you, but it's sometime down the road.
Okay. And then the second question that I have, which is just more for the budget piece. So with the tipping fees that we collect for the landfill, that's under utilities somewhere, that's separate from, we don't put that in with waste disposal at all?
All revenues will be going over on, all the revenues are put together, and
Okay.
we go over that on, try to remember.
Yeah, this is the expenditure side of the budget.
Right. I just
April
want to kind of
4th.
offset it, in
Yep.
my mind anyways. as
Right,
far
so
as-
April 4th, we'll be going over revenues.
Okay.
But it is under, the tip and fees are under the revenue.
Gotcha.
Counselor, you'll see them under that same division that you're seeing here, the 4342 and the 4343. So that way, if you want a tick and tie.
So waste disposal is on page 63. Overall increase of $131,451, or 18.4%. Personal services increased $33,795. This is attributed to steps and overtime. There are 4 employees located in this division. Contracted services increased $95,776. Utilities, $18,531 increase due to electrical, water, and sewer. Increase of $37,022 in the vehicle rental for rentals of a loader for 660 hours at $60.75. This is a new vehicle that they're renting from Central Garage, so that's the increase. An increase in ash hauling of $28,350 due to the rate going from $121 to $142. An increase in testing services of $6,700 due to the testing cost increase for the groundwater sampling and analysis. Supplies increase $1,970. An increase of $1,000 is in other supplies for the testing supplies increase. Fixed charges decreased $90. This is due to the biannual professional engineer license renewal that is being paid fiscal year '24 that will not need to be paid in fiscal year '25. That is the waste disposal. Are there any questions on that department?
Councillor Galan?
Thank you, Council Scott. Ash hauling, that's a set fee for material, nothing to do with the driver? Nothing to do with the new position you're looking for? Would that change the price of that at all?
Do you have that for service on the solid waste to be able to do ash hauling?
So currently, they budgeted with them using the contracted, but if the new service goes through, correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, that amount will change?
Should decrease.
Should decrease,
Yes.
correct?
Should decrease.
Correct.
So right now, I believe they're using our equipment, and we pay to have a driver to
Right.
bring that back and bring from Auburn over to Lewiston. And what's going on is, we've had vehicle damage. Phil could attest to that, because it's not their equipment. Second of which, the unit price is going up. So we could actually have a staff person in Lewiston that would care for our equipment, lower the cost, and would be a savings.
So could you explain, sorry.
Did I get that right?
It's actually, they have their own equipment, and we pay strictly just a price per haul.
They use
They,
that
they,
truck.
they do not use our truck for ash hauling. It's almighty in their trucks.
So who keeps wrecking our roll-offs? The roll-off truck?
Main Waste to Energy.
Oh, okay.
Another company.
New guy.
Another company. So will that mean we would have to buy our own equipment to go with our new employee
There is a truck in the budget this year.
for that purpose? So they're tied together? So
The truck was actually put in the budget before I knew anything about them wanting to haul waste again. The truck that's over at Main Energy is kind of coming to the end of its life, but I don't really want to put another truck over there unless we really have to, but we need to be ready when that truck gets to the point where it's not going to be worth fixing anymore, which could be in the next year. So, and the length of time to get vehicles now is extremely long, so I don't want to wait, because this could take me a year plus to get another roll-off truck. I mean, I'm waiting for trucks now that I ordered a year and a half, 2 years ago, that still haven't shown up yet. So I'm trying to stay ahead of the game and not be cut with just one truck, because then that truck has to bounce back and forth between both places, and, you know, you can't, they're not easy to come by to rent them, so it's kind of
So I
an
guess
issue.
that would be my question. If we hire this individual and we don't have a truck, what is the individual gonna be doing? One, do we need to, are we getting the
Well, we still
cart
have
in
the
front
old
of-
truck that's there that we would take back.
So we do have a truck that could be used.
Yeah.
I guess that's what my question comes into, is it wouldn't be like getting the cart in front of the horse and, have a nice new employee with no place, nothing to drive.
Yeah, now the same truck that would be moving the cans around at the landfill would have to also move the ash, which is gonna put another stress and strain on that, so we'll have one old truck and one newer truck
Okay.
doing two jobs.
I understand, I just want to make sure that we have a vehicle for this new person. Thank you.
Councillor Roy?
How many employees did you say? 4 or
There's 4 employees.
employees?
Councillor Chittum?
I would like at some point to have a workshop dedicated to solid waste and recycling, so that we can explore the relationship we have with Main Energy, what our tipping fees, the landfill life, the incentives for recycling. So I would like somehow to schedule a workshop, probably after we finish the budget, so that all of these solid waste issues can be brought to bear and let the public understand how complex an issue this is. So I guess, Madam Administrator, if we could somehow put that on the budget for,
I made a note, thank you.
thank you, I'm not on the budget, on the agenda, thank you.
Open spaces and tree work are on page 63 and 64. There's an overall increase of $202,554, or 16.6%. Personal services increased $181,335. This is due to step increases, along with the overtime budget to actual to cover for assignments and emergencies. Temporary wages, of course, increased due to the minimum wage increase. There is 14 full-time regular employees in this department. Contracted services increased $16,711. A decrease in utilities of $9,566 in electricity. Miscellaneous services decreased $9,360. This is due to a reduction in the porta potties. An increase in vehicle rental of $15,000 due to the increase in city activities and expectations of the open spaces. Repairs in buildings increased $12,650 due to the skate park wash, seal, and graffiti removal that will need to be done in fiscal year '25. Maintenance of trees of $5,000 due to the hazardous tree work. Supplies increased $4,430. The largest increase is the household supplies, $2,980. This is due to the increase in the cost of the chemicals for the pool to meet the state regulations. Fixed charges increased $78. This is in the meals, which is the same as you saw in the other department. This is a contractual obligation that's under the union contract for the workers when they work over 8 consecutive hours. So under open spaces on page 64, you may have noticed that you will see forestry board expenses. The recommendation was removed. That is a 50-50 tree program, so it was eliminated from the budget several years ago. Lewiston Auburn Community Forestry Board may approve funding with these resources. Their balance on the city side as of June 30th, 2023 is $10,773, of which to date, as of today, $415.71 has been spent. And then you will also see the tree bait program. Council approved $60,000 to develop and market the city tree bait program. As of June 30th, 2018, the balance was $57,808, and $300 was spent to date. On March 5th, 2019, the City Council voted to rescind all but $5,000 for this balance. As of June 30th, 2023, there is $5,295 in that account, and to date, they've used $100. So that's why you see those lines, the recommendation going down to zero, because those expenditures will be covered under those funds. So that is open spaces and tree work. Are there any questions?
Councilor Najin?
Just generally on the urban canopy piece, I don't see it in here at all, and I'm just wondering, like, we usually budget for street trees, is it not in this section?
That's the amount that they can be covered from the forestry board. And there, you will see a resolve on your agenda for Tuesday night to budget for canopy trees as well.
Okay.
Is that resolved? Is that the grant?
That's the grant.
Okay. Councilor Chittum?
Are these, do these involve the trees on Pierce Street?
I know they're the inner city ones related to the Choice neighborhood. I'm not sure exactly the placement on which streets.
I'm trying to remember whether or not the deal that we worked with the developer on Pierce Street included the city taking
Yes.
over the
Yes,
trees?
yes. And these are the trees for
Okay.
that, yes.
Thank you.
So next is the hydro electric canals on page 64. There's an overall decrease of $125,676, or 71.7%. Personal services increased $3,764. Contractual services decreased $130,126. This is due to a decrease in utilities of $18,604. This decrease is all in the propane for heating. The canal maintenance of $110,000 is one of those amounts that was moved to fund balance to be recommended by fund balance, so that's the largest decrease. Fixed charges increased by $686. This is in the property insurance due to the increase in insurance rates. So that's the hydro. Are there any questions on?
Councillor Chittum?
We used to make electricity.
We did.
And we no longer make electricity.
Correct.
And I think that was because equipment was dilapidated and irreparable. We had an old dynamo that was powered by the canals. Are we also forbidden under our agreement with Brookfield from generating any electricity from the canals?
Correct. When we negotiated to purchase the canals, our water reduction made it so we could just move fresh water to keep the canals fresh. We couldn't generate power due to water flow.
Okay, so it's both a physical and a legal prohibition.
Correct.
This is a little bit off topic, but is not Brookfield's relicensing up for renewal?
It is, and we've been having some meetings to discuss the ask during the application process of what Lewiston would like. So I've attended some meetings along with Jeff Boley and others to try to come up with a unified. Auburn is, we'd like to bring some stuff to you. So Shelley Norton, Jeff Boley, myself, and others to be able to come back and put a proposal to you on what the council and administration would like to ask.
Okay, because that's important. I wondered what the timeline was on that. I knew that it was coming up fairly soon, and I want to make certain that we're getting everything we can from through the what are those federal agencies?
Federal
Yeah,
Energy
okay.
Regulatory. So the impetus for this, I believe we had a 90-day window. We're a couple weeks into it. They filed at the end of February. And so we're going through around 5,000 pages of documents.
Yeah.
There are other people that were involved and are no longer here. And we're trying to get up to speed. And I think the group that has most leadership in the discussion we've been involved with, the project area that is in the permit has been reduced. So there's a lot of limitations right now on what you can ask. But the impetus is to say, what do you think Lewiston would do or want to be done in the next 40 years? And we want to get those type of big asks on the table.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity, and I'm very nervous about letting it slip by. So I hope that there's plenty of attention being made to working with FERC on making certain that we get what we would like to have out of it.
And I'd like to make the last point before Councilor Nagina's question. So we're in the process now of trying to decommission those facilities that are on the canals. So part of those were strictly what we had as the street light division, which was the hydro facility that you see here. But there are other assets that came with that canal that need to be decommissioned that are power generation and Mill 5, and there's another station. So we need to make sure that the penstocks that are underneath buildings and underneath roadways aren't going to collapse because of negligence, or we just walk away from them. Even though in the last X number of years, FPL and others have not done canal maintenance. So that's why we took it over, is they weren't doing maintenance, they weren't doing anything with it. But now that impetus is on us. So we've been working, Dan has been in contact, Dan Roderick, who you've met, has been working with our consultants, as well as talking with FERC on what that process is. And that Jeff Boley and engineering have been looking to keep those things moving. We've already abandoned some pen stocks at the end of the canal, by Grimmel's gas station, where canal goes to Lisbon. So we had a project last summer. We just demoed another gate facility and created a ramp to try to get into the canals and do some maintenance. That's not all reflected here. So that's why you see the 110 pulled out. There's specialty projects that we're trying to get done to either tie in with the River Line Master Plan and other initiatives that we're trying to do, or we're trying to get rid of a FERC license, or we're trying to beautify and not let it be an eyesore.
Yep, okay. I do want to shout out to Mr. Roderick. You, if memory serves, you were nursing those dynamos through their last legs, were you not?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that. That may have been fun, or it may have been a huge challenge, but
Interesting to say the least.
yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Councillor Najin?
Just to reiterate on the FERC relicensing, so in this point, we're talking 40 years before we get to renegotiate, or 50 years? Do you remember?
It's a 40-year license, I believe.
40 years, okay. And I know that the recreational survey was, let's say it was not very robust. One of the big challenges, I think, that we're going to see is, it sounds like we have to have all of our suggestions in by the beginning of June. Is that correct?
I believe we had a 90-day deadline on that.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there any way we could, share that with all the because one of the big challenges, you look at Lowell Street in particular, some of the development that's going to go on there, the fact that water, basically collects in the river at this point, which is a challenge for the Class B licensing, and then also just the ways in which you can move around Brookfield properties in order to connect. Yeah, so I think we all know.
Island Point redevelopment, the surrounding developments, there's a lot of great concepts out there, and we want to make sure we're poised to be able to act on those, definitely.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Next, we're going to go over municipal garage, which is on page 65. There's an overall decrease of $201,383, or 214%. Personal services, as we discussed earlier in this evening, decreased $278,708. The salaries of the regular and overtime are offset by that credit for the internal charge-outs of $409,072. There is 11.5 employees in this department currently with one vacancy. Contractual services increased $44,374. We had a decrease in outside services of $1,100. Less work to be completed for rust on vehicles this year. An increase in repairs to vehicles, $33,000, based upon cost of parts increasing and having to sub out repairs due to the staff shortage. Repairs to equipment of $1,000 increase. This is the same as repairs to vehicles, seeing an increase in cost of parts and the shortage of staff having to sub out repairs. Miscellaneous services, $6,677, due to the slight increase in user fees on the RTA repair software. In-service training, $2,050, due to the CMMC mechanics training courses that they've budgeted for. Supplies increased $32,951. The increase of $18,701 in gas and oil. For the first month, the city has a contract, so the rate for gas is at $2.64 for the purchase and $2.69 for diesel. So as you'll see in other departments, municipal garage charges 15 cents over that for gas to the other departments, and 20 cents over on diesel, and the difference of that 5 cents is due to the diesel having winter additives added into it, so there's more of a charge. Tires and tubes increased $10,000 due to a tire for the loader at the landfill. Department apparel increased 1,000 due to boot allowance increase in the contract. This is a contractual obligation in the union contract. Household supplies, $1,200 due to the increase in cost of the spill supplies that they have at the garage. Small tools increased $2,050. This is mostly due to the tool allowance in the union contract, which is another contractual obligation. Fixed charges remained flat. So that is municipal garage. Are there any questions on municipal garage?
Councillor Chittum?
Thank you. You piqued my interest with this tool allowance. This is a reimbursement to employees who buy their own tools?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, that's what it is.
Yep. She's right.
It sounds like a lot of money, but the tools that these guys are buying, a lot of the specialized stuff changes constantly, and it doesn't go very far.
Is it all Snap-on tools, or can we get Craftsman tools?
It comes from all different places. Most of these, I mean, Craftsman doesn't sell a lot of these tools that they're buying. A lot of it has to do with specialized things. I mean, just to do certain things on engines requires specialized tools. I mean, in the municipal garage, the city buys like the diagnostic computers, software, things of that nature. But the tools themselves, I mean, I'd say the average guy probably has $40,000 worth of tools. You know, that a lot of them came with most of that stuff. So this is just helping them keep up with the changes of technology and stuff.
Sure. So is this a fixed allowance per the union contract per employee?
Yeah.
So if that person wants to buy one $500 socket wrench from Snap-on, that's okay, or you can buy a whole plethora of other useful tools from a less expensive vendor?
Most of them have running tool accounts on the trucks. You know, they've purchased a lot of tools, and then they use that money to make payments on them over the course of years. But
Okay, all right. So we're not reimbursing Cadillac tools. This is a flat fixed amount.
right, it's what
Right.
they need to spend it on. It has
Okay.
to be something related to the job. They can't
Sure,
go buy
sure.
a leaf blower or something.
Right.
But, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Councillor Gallant?
Thank you, Scott. It's not on here, car wash. We talked about this new washing machine to wash cars to keep corrosion and stuff down, to which I'm very much in favor of. Is this gonna be a schedule item through you where, like, I pay $19 a month and wash my car as many times as I want? Or are you gonna say, Mr. Police Officer, after every other shift, someone's gonna bring a car through and rinse it out? How would that work?
Most of the police cruisers and the smaller pickups and stuff, we have contracts with the local car washers. I mean, I'm washing pickup trucks for $4.50, and that includes the underwash. So that stuff probably won't change. Those are the only things that can go through the local car washers. You know, even our pickup trucks, if they got ladder racks or vans that have ladder racks, none of that can go through the local car wash. Right now, we have a place where we can fit one truck at a time inside a storage building surrounded by other vehicles. So when they wash that vehicle, the dirt ends up on everything else. So and we can only wash so many vehicles a day because they're stored outside, and they have to stay inside till they're dry because we put them outside and the control systems freeze up. So we wash on an average day probably 5-6 vehicles. And it's not too bad now, we don't get the snowstorms, but you know, you look back a few years where it snowed 2 or 3 days a week, well, we're only washing a very small portion of the fleet. I mean, we have 50 units that could be out there between plows and loaders and everything else during any storm, and we just can't wash them fast enough.
Okay, good.
I think one big note for the public is that, how long ago, Phil? 10 years ago, 15 years ago? We were actually washing vehicles outside or at the bays. That does not meet stormwater regs.
We were
So-
forced inside by government regulations.
So we actually accommodated what used to be a cold storage area and tried to put in an interior truck washing station. So that's the ask in the LCIP. It's large fleet trucks like Phil described, but it's also a safety, but it's driven by we cannot wash in the bays or outside of Public Works anymore.
Right.
And we haven't been.
And a follow-up would be, would the school department's vehicles be allowed to use this same facility? Are they in some kind of rotation? Could we pay
Police.
for those trucks?
The way we want
vehicles
to work it is anybody that has a vehicle fuel fob from, what gets fuel from us, will have access to be able to do it. So that would be, you'd waive your fob, we'd have a fixed dollar price for how long the car, just like you go to the self-care car wash, but you're paying for it with your fob, and it would get billed through our fuel force system along with the fuel that they would get every month. That's how we're looking to do it.
Good, excellent answer, thank you.
All set?
Can I say one other thing about corrosion while I'm here?
Please do.
It's bad.
Corrosion affects probably 80% of every repair the municipal garage does, from wiring to nuts to bolts to everything.
Frame.
I mean, if we can clean them, it would reduce my repair costs, it would reduce our parts costs and everything else, and we just can't do it. That's the big push for it, and if you want to come down and see it, I can show it to you in real life.
Phil actually didn't bring the bolt. He actually shows what a bolt that they've had to actually change out transmission bolts.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
how often
they're
does anyone
rusting
change
off.
the transmission bolts in their car? Have you ever done it? Our big trucks, they last about 5 years. So you get a $300 box of bolts and you change every bolt in the transmission because there's no heads left on them. So to change the filters in an Allison transmission should be 12 bolts, shouldn't take you more than an hour. It could take 2 days by the time you get them out, because those that you can't drill out, you weld the nut on and take them out one at a time. So to do a whole transmission could take several days to change all the bolts, so.
Councillor Chittum?
Yes, thank you. Back to the streetlights. If we're going to, I'm referring to my comment about let's quantify savings. And it sounds to me as though the major driver for a vehicle washing facility at Public Works is savings. I don't know how one would go about doing that, but I would dearly love to see that we've set up a program so that these washed vehicles are now requiring X number of dollars a year less than they did before they were washed on a regular basis.
Good
It
point.
might be difficult to see because, as our repair costs going down, the parts are continuously going up. So I don't know if you'd really see it. It might go down as far as labor hours, but I think the parts costs would go up. I mean, we're seeing anywhere from 20 to 40% increase on things that we bought. I mean, we bought 3 identical plow trucks, and I think it was 20. They cost $535,000. We bought 2 more a year ago. We haven't received them yet, and they cost $500 and something thousand. So I mean, that's, we're paying for 3 trucks and getting 2 now. So the costs are skyrocketing.
Well, I appreciate that. I think there may be a way to factor that into whatever algorithms or methodologies we use to do the accounting.
Look at some other metrics that
Yep.
they gauge how many times are we changing the bolts in the transmission
Precisely.
versus
Right.
a dollar amount. I hear you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Or just on the line items themselves, looking at, one, the length of time a car stays in the fleet, and then 2, separating the cost from parts and then labor. But I just had a quick question about vehicles, because I noticed there was no expenditure at all, and so those were all moved to fund balance, or are we just not asking
Correct.
for anything?
Correct. They're all moved to fund balance.
Okay, perfect.
And I think one last point on vehicles, you'll see that, to Phil's point, is you may look at a Public Works vehicle and think there's nothing wrong with it because the outer, we're doing a pretty good job in washing the outside. We can spray those off, or the rust inhibition's better. You don't have panels with holes in them. You don't have corners of cabs rusting off, but it's the underbody that you can't see that's being affected when we're not washing them.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you hear the public complain about, the corrosive materials we use for the sand and salt. Well, by the time they drive through it, it's highly diluted because it's melted the sand and salt. These trucks are living in a mist of 100% concentrated chemicals, so it's a lot worse for them.
And just another point, you can see the vehicles that are going to need replacement in your LCIP on page 77. So there's a list behind on page 77, so it's probably 78, has a list of replacement vehicles. So next is public buildings on page 65 and 66. There's an overall increase of $38,968, or 13%. Personal services increased $30,655 due to steps and goals. There are 5.5 employees in this department. Contractual services increased $8,795. Increase in vehicle rentals of $10,002. This is due to a dedicated sweeper for this department. This is offset by a decrease in miscellaneous services of $1,608 for the project software that is in the new program. It was accidentally put into the budget, so we removed it because it is a new program. So that is the first Public Works building. The next one is Public Works building. Sorry, the first one was Public Buildings. Second one is Public Works building on page 66. The overall increase of $1,226, or 0.5%. Contractual services increased $59,672. This is an increase in utilities and electrical. $2,675 is largely due to the electrical going up. Repairs to building, $2,479 increase due to the HVAC, preventative maintenance, and the pest control services. Supplies increased $600, and again, this is the membership for the share center cost that we had discussed earlier in another department. So with those two, do you have any questions on public buildings or Public Works building?
Counselor Gallant?
Thank you, Scott. The shared cost, shared building cost, we can't pay one cost for the whole city, you're just dividing it amongst, how does that work?
The share center?
Yes.
So you can't pay one membership. It's each department that uses it has to pay a membership. So there's not just one membership for the whole city. It's the departments that use it have to have a membership.
And are we quantifying all the stuff we get from the share center to make sure it pays out? I use an example, Price Club, Costco, you can have 5 memberships a year and spend $300, $400, $500, but you only shop in one place, so you don't really, I mean, do we know the departments are going there to get our bang for our buck? I mean,
Will be the first year they're paying the membership.
okay, so in the next year, then we have some idea whether or not this is going to be a fruitful venture for us.
And I will say, depending on what's going on, we look at multiple different sources, if it's an office chair, if it's, there's the Amazon, we go and can look at the share center, and we try to make our money go the furthest that we can, and trying to be frugal.
Yep, no, I've been there, and it's got a
Yep.
lot of nice, neat,
We may not be tracking it, but I know that's what we're trying to do.
so I understand that, and helping out the community, there's a couple value-added things from actually going there and recycling and that whole gambit of what we look at. So, but I worry about, if I get a BJ's membership, I don't have to buy one for my wife and everybody else, okay? I have a BJ's membership, and she has a card and she goes shopping. Why couldn't the city of Lewiston have a single membership that your department would take, and then if another department needs it, that's just my concept of thinking of how, you buy memberships, it's like going to the gym.
So we've also utilized at the share center, there's no electronics that are purchased, that all goes through MIS. So, just so we're clear on that.
All right, thank you.
So not every department has this. Only the departments that use the share center actually are doing the membership, like the finance department, we don't have it. So just the departments that use the share center.
I think the only other two are maybe library and recreation.
Right.
Based upon the supplies stuff that they use.
Yeah, that's good. I just heard it mentioned, I guess 3 times, you just said, and just, my mind rolls into, why can't you have a card over here at the central office and someone picks it up and go use the card like a BJ's or something like that, so.
Counselor Chittum?
Yeah, we're not talking a huge amount of money here, but it does, I appreciate Councilor Gallant's comments that, who determines that each department has to have its own membership? I mean, could that same individual say, well, no, Public Works needs to have a highway department membership, needs to have an engineering department membership, needs to have, why can't the city have a single membership? And who makes that decision?
The share center, I believe, that's their policy. And like I said, the only individuals who are doing this membership are the individuals that go there quite often. Others are not.
Mr. Turcott, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, we did try to get a single membership for the whole city, figuring there would at least be some economy in that, it'd be a lot simpler, and it wasn't offered. Their policies don't allow it at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Next is city-owned parcels on page 66. This is an overall decrease of 28,432, or 28.1%. Martell School became a city-owned property October 2019. In fiscal year 2025, you're going to see that is removed out of the budget due to the sale of the property to Lewiston Housing. So contracted services decreased 28,432. There was a decrease in utilities of 18,675 due to historical use, and the Martell School decrease in 9,757, bringing that line down to 0. Are there any questions?
Counselor Najin?
Just really quickly on the utilities piece, so we budgeted for 2024 for 85,900. We've only used 13,000 of that at this point. What is the difference between what we budgeted for and what we're actually showing for an expense? Because I'm showing 67,000 recommended for 2025, but on that trajectory, it looks like it's going to be only about 20,000.
Correct. I believe Martell, I'll confirm, but I believe Martell was in there for the full year, not knowing which direction the city council was going to go. So to err on the safe side, we budgeted for the full year.
Yep.
So that completes Public Works. Do you have any other questions?
Counselor Chittum?
Yeah, I do. With Martell and 75 Park Street gone, what else constitutes city-owned property that is budgeted here?
This includes some of the charges for the canals, for some of the utilities, some things from a fluctuation standpoint. If we've had a tax-acquired parcel that we need to either pay stormwater on. Back a while ago, we had a parcel that abutted a private road, so we had a proration of snow plowing. So those are the types of costs that are assigned here.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the council?
I've got a few, but I think I'm going to email them in. I think it's going to be the best way to do it. So
just to let you know, we will be getting an email, Councilor Chittum, and ask some things about the pavement ratings, how we redo streets. So we can get that to you in an email, or we can dive deeper in another workshop.
I was going to ask when we were under the Highway Division, but it didn't really seem appropriate because most of my questions related to LCIP projects.
And we can deal with that but I can get you a document that, we have some stuff on the website you can view. We have some information, and I'll put that together in a memo and get that to administration, distributed to council.
I appreciate that, Director Gagne. However, the purpose of my asking those questions was so that our viewers could begin to understand.
Whatever format you would like, and I know
Okay.
it's to the benefit of the public.
I would prefer to have this an open dialogue question at some point.
Sounds good.
So that our public can understand some of the complexities of your job and the decisions that have to be made when you're deciding how to prioritize tasks.
Sounds good. And at that time, we'll have stuff on the board for people to look at digitally and do some real time.
Sweet.
So just a reminder, Monday night, you have a budget workshop with the school, 5:30 at Green Ladle.
Counselor Gallant?
The school budget is nothing more than a presentation to us, is that correct?
That's correct.
Then we will have a chance to cut at, or look at it. Do we ever have that
What-
opportunity?
Traditionally, what happens is the school superintendent will present a memo, kind of where they started, similar to us, what some of their cost drivers are, what they've reduced up to this point, and just kind of showing you what the impacts of the budget are. As a reminder, the school committee does line item adjustments. The city council does the bottom line.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Chittum?
And the public still gets to weigh in on this, or did we?
There's still a referendum process with that. They have not done away with that.
Okay. That is an option, though. Can the city vote not to have public referendum on school budgets?
Actually, that is a question on the referendum. The public votes whether to continue it or not. That's not a council decision.
Right. But
Yes.
the public, and that's asked every year?
Yep,
And the public has so far said, no, we want to make decisions.
that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, this concludes our workshop. Thank you to all the staff who attended, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Have a good
very
night.
much.
Thank you, folks, very much. Appreciate it.